Ben and Curt Till It Hurts, the internet's premier Taylor Swift fan cast. Curtis, what are your 3 favorite songs from Taylor Swift's new album Reputation?
It's really hard when they're all so good to, put me on the spot to pick 3 of the best.
Wrong answer. There are 3 songs that are perfect on that album, and there are some very bad songs on it as well.
I haven't listened to it, admittedly. Weirdly though, my brother, I would call it a crush. He has what I would like to call a crush on Taylor Swift, but I hesitate to call it that because it's almost too much. You're not allowed to say anything bad about Taylor when he's in the room.
Right. Saying that he has a crush on Taylor Swift would be too far. You would have opened a can of worms by doing that.
Shout out to my brother. It's his birthday today.
A happy birthday, Luke.
He won't hear this for months. He's on a submarine. But
enough tomfoolery, Curtis. This is, of course, Ben and Curt Till It Hurts, the culture cast caught at the crossroads of curation and castration. And this month, we are the internet's premier buyer's guide for the past 30 years of video games.
Very excited.
I'm very excited to cover the years. What's this going to cover? 1986 through 1994, 5-ish?
Yeah, right in there.
Yep. So if anybody who wants to buy someone a console, but it came out 30 years ago.
If you find yourself going back in time over the holidays, don't know which console you want to buy for your friend or yourself, hopefully we can help you.
Listen up. We're going to have some answers for you. So, what consoles are we covering this episode, Curtis?
For our... Are we calling this a battle royale?
I'm comfortable calling it. Well, I don't know. I want to come up with what the most impactful, important console is of all time.
Okay.
Of the ones that we know and have played.
Well, today we're going to be doing 2 rounds, if you wish to call them that. We're going to be talking about the Sega Master System and the Nintendo Entertainment System. And then following that, we'll be talking about the Sega Genesis and the Super Nintendo Entertainment System.
Oh boy. TurboGrafx 16 left in the fucking dust.
I've
should have had a good game, TurboGrafx 16.
I've never played one.
Should have had a game either of us cared about.
I know. If I were a good podcast host, I would have done a little research and just gave it a shout out for some popular games on it.
I tried to do some research. Wait, no, you know what? I did do some research. There's a game called...
Look at you, good podcast host.
Goofus and gallant over here. The TurboGrafx 16 had a game called Ninja Spirit. And you may notice that ninjas are going to be something of a theme on the games that we talk about today. Ninjas were huge in the late 80s, early 90s.
They sure were.
They really were. What was that? Surf Ninjas? That's a good one.
That's the premier example
height
of popular ninjas.
Yeah, Surf Ninjas.
Not Shinobi.
Nope.
Not Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Mm-hmm.
Not Ninja Gaiden.
Nope, Surf Ninjas.
Surf Ninjas.
Yeah.
Right at the top.
Yeah, Tone Loc's in that movie, man.
He sure is. Everyone's favorite ninja,
yeah.
Tone Loc.
Yep. There's a game called Ninja Spirit. It's a very good game. I played it. I didn't play it on a TurboGrafx 16. In fact, I only may have played a video game inspired by Ninja Spirit, but the game that I played that was inspired by Ninja Spirit was good. So I have to shout out Ninja Spirit.
And sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes the best thing a game can give you is not what it gives you, but the motivation it gave others to make a better version of what they were trying to do.
Yeah, the best thing Ninja Spirit had to offer the world was the inspiration to make what I now that I think of it, I think may have been a mini game inside of a video game called Retro Game Challenge or something that came out on the DS. Yeah. Anyway.
I'm trying to... those little Tiger Electronics little handheld.
Yeah, I had a Sonic Adventure one.
There's that was a good one.
That was a pretty good one.
Of the awful things that those were,
yes.
That was probably the best one. But there was a cool ninja one that I had too. That was a pretty cooperative beat 'em up for how awful those things were to play.
Mm-hmm.
That was a pretty responsive, and you could play it, and it wouldn't. And then I got a Game Boy, and
it's just throw all those away.
Just offensive at that point.
Scrap them for parts.
Yeah.
All right, how do we want to get into this?
Well,
Master
I think
System?
Yeah, let's talk about that generation first. And let's talk about the Master System, because I think with the Master System, it almost interrupted how we went about this podcast, because I think we both kind of realized going into it that this is a pretty biased event.
Yeah.
And I don't know much about the Master System. I own one. It's behind you. If you've never seen one.
Oh, that's a Master System.
Yeah.
That's a weird looking machine.
It is.
It looks kind of like a PS4.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Man, Sony just ripping it off.
Sony ripping off the Master System.
So, did you ever have a Master System?
No, I never had any Sega console.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
okay.
I know. This is, like we said, this is going to be
Look,
biased.
There's nothing wrong with that. I did not get a Master System until I was in high school. I bought that Master System at a yard sale, complete in box, for $10.
Damn.
And it came with 2 games, and we'll probably talk about those games a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't have a whole lot to say about it. I know some games on it that are pretty okay, and I think I tried to do a little extensive research. That doesn't really make sense. I did a little research, and I think the general consensus with the Master System versus the regular Nintendo is the Master System games are classified as better than you would expect, and the Nintendo has like best video games of all time.
Right. The games that have grown into what video games are today were all on the Nintendo.
Yeah. But I mean, that doesn't mean there weren't some gems on the Master System.
Yeah, what do you like? What do you like on the Master System?
Before Sega had created Sonic the Hedgehog, their attempt at a mascot was a little boy named Alex Kidd, and I think they were trying to make a little cool, little relatable kid. And those games, I've played a couple of them, and they're pretty solid little platformer games.
A kid. His name is literally Kid.
I never. Yeah.
Wow.
You know, the same thing happened to me. When I mentioned, I was in film club. You were there actually. When I was like, I don't know why Tails' name is miles per hour, and someone was like, it means miles per hour. 20 years of playing Sonic, and my fucking brain exploded on a Friday afternoon.
And you assumed it was a reference to Miles Davis.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, and somebody named Prower. I don't think Prower is a real name.
No, but then again, there aren't really foxes with 2 tails, so...
As far as we know.
That's true. You know what? I apologize to any 2-tailed foxes out there.
Yeah, that's like half of our listener base.
I don't know if that's true or not, and I just said that without any thought. But anyway,
sorry for oppressing you guys. What's good on the Master System?
Yeah, the Alex Kidd games are pretty good. And they're
platformers, right?
Yeah,
they're
from my memory, the controls are a little muddy, but they're consistently muddy. Like once you get used to how you have to play them, you can get through the game. Like they're not as fluid or fast as say Super Mario Brothers, but you can play it and it's playable. Also, I had Psycho Fox on Sega Master System, which is just another kind of platformer. I think it was kind of like the missing link between Alex Kidd and Sonic the Hedgehog.
Is this weird fox?
Yeah. Who I believe only had 1 tail.
Okay, all right. Well, don't fact check that or anything.
No, we don't fact check here. This is a purely rose-tinted nostalgia glasses episode. We're not backing any of this information up.
Yeah. So, did you play this weird fox game?
Yeah, and it was, your pretty standard platformer. It was just another okay platformer. I also had Paperboy on that console, which, if you like, Paperboy.
If you like Paperboy, you might like this home version of Paperboy.
Yeah, I
Do you like Paperboy?
I never got into it. That was a little... Video games had kind of become video games when I started playing them.
And Paperboy is not a video game?
It was more of an arcade game.
Okay.
And I mean, not to say that those aren't video games.
Yeah,
but
Jesus, you digging a hole. The other half of our audience is arcade owners.
That's true. What about the pinball machine players?
We should be so lucky as to have them listening. That's a very loyal audience. That's a good dollar.
Yeah, you're right.
I keep derailing you. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I don't have a whole lot to say about it. I just
you want?
Yeah, I know there were a few good platformers after the Sega Genesis had come out. This was back when a new console could come out and there would still be a little support for the console before it.
That still happens.
Does
I
it?
mean, we're never going to have a new console generation ever again, but back, way back when, like, what was the last big console generation shift? It was probably the Xbox moving into the Xbox 360.
You wouldn't say like PS4, Xbox One?
No, I don't think that was a real shift. I don't think there was anything really new about those machines.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Like the graphical jump, it was more like, I bought this personal computer that I hook up to my TV, and they're going to sell me another one just with better graphics. At this point, we can do pretty much everything that we need to do on a video game console screen, right?
Okay.
So, yeah, I would say that the final real generational jump was between the Xbox going into the 360, PS2 going into PS3, and GameCube going into Wii, which, God, can't wait to get to that transition. What a weird transition. Nintendo knew was the thing. They knew, like, this is no longer a business that we want to be involved in.
Yeah, that was always what really kind of, we'll get into that. We'll
get to that eventually. But anyway,
yeah,
they still did that right up to the end.
So after Sonic the Hedgehog had come out and become a smash success on the Sega Genesis, they made kind of like a simplified, ported down version for the Master System, which I have not played, but I watched some speedrunners play it the other day in bed just to see what it kind of looked like, and it looks pretty much like a slowed down, dumbed down version of it.
Yeah.
But it looks playable. It looks pretty fun. Yeah. And other than that, I decided to look at a list of like the most downloaded and top rated games, and you kind of have some basic, Shinobi and Phantasy Star, Golden Axe Warrior.
Did you ever play any of those games?
No, I haven't.
Shinobi or Phantasy Star?
No.
You never played a Shinobi?
No.
Shinobi's tight, man. Shinobi's a really good, like, I guess it's kind of a Castlevania style game, like an action adventure sort of game. And Phantasy Star is neat. Phantasy Star is not what you'd expect it to be. I only ever played Phantasy Star on the Game Boy Advance re-release of Phantasy Stars 1 through 3.
Yeah.
And I never got very far in it because I don't have the gumption to like play a hard video game. But I did enjoy what I saw, like first-person dungeons. You have your overworld, and then you can go into a town and talk to people in the town. And then when you go into a dungeon, it goes to full-blown first-person view of these corridors, and you have to make a map on graph paper, or else you're going to get lost in the dungeon. It's weird. It's weird, but it's pretty good.
Two things to say to that. I have always loved that. I had adopted that style of gaming from a friend of mine's older brother when I was younger. He always had a notepad, so when he was playing Pokemon or Harvest Moon or whatever game that was a little more in-depth than just a regular platformer, he always had a notepad and he was writing stuff down. And I've adopted that. I'll have like a notepad for, video games that I play. Mm-hmm. I think that's pretty cool. The only other thing I've never played any Phantasy Star games, but I was always mystified by it because Phantasy Star Online was for the GameCube, and I was
and
huge.
Dreamcast.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I
started
was
on the
huge
Dreamcast.
into the GameCube, so I really wanted the connector cables and the advanced SP, and all those additional peripheral hookups. And that console even had like a keyboard that was literally like a keyboard with a GameCube controller on each side of it.
That was a odd peripheral. Did you ever buy that?
No, I think that was Japan only. I don't think it worked on any American games.
Oh.
But I was always fascinated that like you could get a GameCube online if you needed to.
There were like 2 games that used that LAN port on the bottom of the GameCube.
So, but no, I've never played the Master System ones. I'm looking at this other. That's pretty much the list of
my only other one is R-Type.
Yeah,
there's an R-Type on the Master System.
That.
I don't know how good it is, and I don't really know the provenance of that game. Like, did that come out? Was that a backwards port, kind of like the Sonic the Hedgehog you were talking about, or what?
I don't know. Yeah.
Because I know R-Type is a pretty graphically intense game. Do you ever play any of the R-Type games?
No, I haven't.
They're pretty cool. Like, you got your little ship. I don't know if you're much of a shoot 'em up guy.
Yeah, I'm whatever.
In the old days, like your scrolling shooters. You've got your little ship, and the cool thing in R-Type is that you get power-ups, but the way you get them is by actually, like, they're floating through the air, and you have your little ship, and your ship runs into them. And then the power-up is like a module on the front or back of your ship. And
that's pretty cool.
It's a good game.
I will say, having just kind of briefly looking at these titles and the most popular ones, even if the Sega Master System didn't kind of reach its full potential, speaking of which, as a side note, I guess technically the power of the Master System was actually more developed. It was actually a more technologically advanced console than the regular Nintendo. But it was just kind of never developed to that point.
The games do look better, I think.
And I think that right from the start, you can kind of see that even though Sega had this clunky, underdeveloped console, they were making cool games. That was kind of they were making the rock and roll games, the real cool games.
They were making punk games.
Yeah, punk rock games.
Heavy metal video games.
Yeah, and I don't think the Super Nintendo... I don't think Nintendo really did that until the Super Nintendo. I don't think they entered their radical era until then.
I don't know. I'm looking at my list of... I wrote Nintendo Entertainment Center here. That's not what it's called.
Not at all.
It's a Nintendo Entertainment System. What am I thinking about? I'm looking at these games, and there's a lot of rock and roll on this list, Curtis.
Okay.
Do we just want to go game for game?
Let's go game for game.
Let's put the Master System behind us. Let's go game for game on the NES.
Okay.
Give me a game.
Battletoads.
Fuck that game.
Well, we can all do that, Ben. What's a game? You give me a game. No, fuck that game.
Yeah.
No.
The game, Curtis said, of the game fucking. Curtis says, fuck that game. This is deteriorating. Castlevania, Curtis.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. I never played one. They're
excellent.
I think when I played the NES, I was a little bit too young to. I couldn't play Legend of Zelda until I got older. Same thing with some of those more, adult, not themed, because it's not like they were like disgusting or anything, but
they're like boobs everywhere in the Castlevania game. A little
too challenging, I think, for young man Curt.
Yeah. And I should note that I never played many of these games at the time. I played them with the help of emulators many years later.
Yep. Shh, you can't say that word on here.
You said you were looking at a download game website.
I didn't say I downloaded any.
They know that we know about emulators. The Nintendo PR people who are listening to this.
Nintendo is enraged.
Nintendo's lizard lawyers are listening to this.
Nintendo, if you're listening, I'm sorry. I'm always a fanboy. But maybe don't wait until you put out the Wii U to put Earthbound on Virtual Console.
Man, what a saga that has been, hasn't it?
What a shit show.
Yeah.
We'll get into that.
Nintendo does not want people to remember Earthbound. They don't want anybody to remember.
That's going to sound fucked up. Sorry, I just kicked my desk.
Give me another game. No, tell me about Battletoads. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, I think that kind of hurts my argument that it wasn't a very rockin' system, because that game's pretty fucking rockin'.
Battletoads?
Yeah. To me, that fell under the umbrella of... When I was a kid, if I liked something a lot, I would ruin it by overexposure to it, and then I'd try to find the next best thing. And Battletoads was like, yeah, it looks kind of like Ninja Turtles. I'll fucking give that a whirl.
Well, that's exactly what they were going for, I'm pretty sure.
That's how I also found out about RoboCop. I was like, that's next to Terminator at the video store. Robot Man. It'll work. It'll fucking work. RoboCop is sick, though.
RoboCop's a really good movie.
I don't have much to say about Battletoads. It was the first game that I saw on this most downloaded list. I rented it from the video store. It was really hard, especially for a young man. And
it's hard in a bad way.
Yeah.
I think.
And that's about as far as I got with that one.
Yeah.
Hit me with another. Let's go game for game.
My next game that I would qualify as essential. That's my criteria.
Okay, we're talking essential.
I'm talking essential.
Okay.
I'm saying if we're looking at a console, every console has mediocre games that are remembered for bad reasons. I'm looking for the games that if you want to know your video games, you should
essential
at least try this game.
You got it. Let's do this.
And my next one is Ninja Gaiden.
Okay.
Ninja Gaiden's a sweet game about ninjas, right? Like I said, this is going to be a theme. Ninja Gaiden is hard as nails, but in the good way. Not like Battletoads hard, where the screen is just moving so fast that you can't physically respond to what's happening.
Ninja Gaiden was one of the handful of games that coined the Nintendo hard phrase.
Yep. And it is Nintendo hard. It's your controls are responsive. It's a precursor to Dark Souls, right? Your controls are responsive, but you need to be thinking about what's going to happen next. Oh, there's the bird is flying at me on the screen. It's in this particular shape that it's flying, and I need to either jump over it or attack it or time my jump appropriately. Ninja Gaiden's a sweet game. What's your... Give me a good one.
Mike Tyson's Punch-Out.
Fuck yes.
Essential.
That game's great.
Top 5.
Yeah. I'm just going to cross that off on my list. Because...
Oh, man. What a game that was.
I love Punch-Out.
Great controls, great look, great music.
Yeah.
Each boxer that you had to fight had, a certain move set that you had to memorize and learn how to get around their special attacks.
It's the original boss run game, right?
Yeah,
that's all it is.
You're right.
It's a game where it's nothing but bosses. It's like you're not running through any levels to get to them. Right. It's like boom, here's a boss. Even from the beginning, they're hard bosses. You really need to think about it.
And especially the bosses or boxers. Whoa.
Uh-oh.
They get scary. Like, as you progress further, and then you finally beat it, you see the next one, and they're a lot bigger than your character. And I was, like, intimidated by it when I was a kid, especially because you knew this next fighter was going to smoke you, because you don't know his pattern yet. So
and he's huge.
Yeah, so you're going to lose, and then you're gonna have to do it all over again. You're gonna have to run through the gauntlet again,
but you get better and better every time.
Yeah, slowly getting better at Glass
karma.
Joe, and then I don't remember who was next, but
Vodka Drinkinski. Just a bunch of super racist names.
Piston Honda, he's one of them.
Yeah,
King Hippo. I related to King Hippo because he was fat.
Yeah, I was a fat kid. Yeah, I could feel that. Yep. There was something else I wanted to say about Punch-Out. I don't remember. That game's tight. The thing about the big sprites is that, that's something that we kind of have forgotten about in the modern day with our, like, limitless computing power to throw at a game. But back in the day, each sprite, I think, was only, like, 32 by 32. So for most characters, you were limited to that size on the screen. Mm-hmm. But for Punch-Out, they did some technical wizardry where each fighter is actually made of, like, several sprites.
Oh.
I think it's like 4 or 5 sprites. It's like their hands are a sprite, and their face is a sprite, and their legs are 2 different sprites, or something like that.
Yep.
That's how they got them so big. And that's why the game works the way it does, too, is because those sprites only need to interact in very predictable and regular ways. In fact, the more predictable and regular, the better. Because that game's like clockwork, you need to know that every time this boxer is going to do something, there's going to be one of the sprites is going to project that beforehand. Yep. They're gonna tell you.
I was just gonna say they have a little tell.
Yeah,
they're gonna open their mouth before they're leave themselves exposed.
Again, it's very Dark Souls actually. Dark Souls has I keep saying Dark Souls. When I say Dark Souls, I mean the Dark Bullsorn, whatever, Bloodborne, Neo, fucking Nier Automata, all these modern action adventure games. All right, yeah, Punch-Out. Punch-Out's great. You know what else is great? Mega Man.
Yeah.
Mega Man. All the Mega Man.
All the Mega Men. All
the different Mega Men, which are a similar kind of deal, right?
Yeah, very hard. I could never get into Mega Man. I loved the show when I was a kid. That show was badass. Super Fighting Robot. Mega Man. That was the best theme song ever. But even as an adult, I've played them like on the eShop and stuff. They're fucking hard. Like you gotta be. There's no room for error in those games. Like that's what I like about Mario is you can, if you over jump something, a lot of times you can kind of lean backwards mid jump, but to
Mario is all about the elegant recovery after the flub.
Yes. Mega Man leaves no room for error.
No, Mega Man is all about the perfect muscle memory execution. But regardless, it's still a very good game. Give me another one.
Oh, let's see. I don't think I would call this essential, I guess. Only maybe, I don't know. I'm going to say Ninja Turtles. No, I don't think it's the perfect game, but I think it was a really popular game that has a lot of cool things about it, like being able to switch characters,
like being about the Ninja Turtles,
right? Mostly the fact that it was about the Ninja
I
Turtles,
love, as a boy from the '90s.
But the fact that you could switch characters and each one had their own weapon, it kind of made it where it was so challenging. It kind of made it still fun because for me, I'd be like, well, I haven't beaten the first level with Raphael yet. Like I can do it with Donatello because he has a really long weapon, but I'll try it with. Raphael.
Who has a shorter weapon.
Right.
Yeah.
I like Ninja Turtles. Man, I'm fucking this up. I didn't make a list of essential games, and now
Ninja Turtles is sweet.
Ninja
Turtles is sweet. No, it's all good. It's all good. My next one, Blaster Master.
Never played that.
Blaster Master rules. Blaster Master is the story of a young boy who goes underground and finds a robot that he jumps inside of, and then he's running around in the robot. He's shooting things. The robot has like this gravity jump where you can jump from one surface to the surface above you.
That sounds sick.
You're shooting things in the robot. It's like a tank that you're inside of. Blaster Master is sweet. It's a really good game.
I think for me, mainly, to cheat, I just Googled and looked up best NES games, and I'm realizing that I've played many of these, but my Nintendo experience was greatly just consumed by Mario 1 through 3. And I think a lot of times that was my go-to. I mean, I'm looking at some games like Kirby. I've never been a huge Kirby fan.
I'm a big Kirby fan.
You're a big Kirby fan.
Tell
me about Kirby, because I have never been a fan of Kirby.
Well, so take the amount. Let's put these games on a scale together. If Mega Man is all about precision, that's not how you pronounce that word. Is all about precision. And Super Mario Brothers is kind of less about precision, but you still need to be, fairly up to date with your moves. Kirby is just a big old playground, I think. Like Kirby is not an especially challenging game, but it's just fun and creative. And you get to see all the different art for whenever you absorb a new power. There's a lot of variety when you absorb a new power and you get, now I can shoot things, or now I have a weird sword, or like now I forget all the powers, but
yeah,
they're cool Kirby powers. It's like it's the what's the name of that game? Not Wario World, Wario Land
Woods. Or no, you're thinking Wario.
Yeah, Wario Land 2. Yep. Same thing, where it's just fun in a platformer to have a game it's not stressful because you're gonna die. But you just need to think about how to get through these challenges.
Sure.
Which of the many powers that are available to me do I need to use to get past this particular obstacle?
Okay.
Kirby's sweet. I'm going to check that one off. We've talked about it. It's good. Tell me about Mario.
Man, I think for me, and probably everybody else, your first experience with a Nintendo is a Mario game. And I think right from the beginning, it sets this tone for what a video game is. It's perfect. You turn it on, you're this guy, you can move left and right, there's cool music playing, and then you run right, you see an enemy. A lot of people die on that first Goomba because they had no idea what a video game was.
You don't know you can jump yet.
And then you're like, oh, I died. Well, I'm going to try that again, but there are 2 buttons here. And you jump over it, and that right there is...
That's video games,
That
folks.
is you entering the world of video games.
You've essentially experienced 90% of what video games have to offer at that point.
I hope you enjoyed it, because it
hope
really
you had fun.
They just refine that.
Yeah, it's all downhill from there, folks.
And I think probably the first Mario game of those 3 is probably my, I don't know, favorite's hard to say. I definitely play that one the most. I love the first one because you can pick it up, you can turn it on, you can play it, and you can beat it really quickly if you want to, or using warp zones, or you can kind of take your time going through the whole thing. It offers enough variety. You kind of go through this rotating pattern of above ground, underground, swimming sometimes, or in the treetops, and then you have your castle levels. And I think it just, each time you go through that rotation, it just gets a little bit harder while keeping the same pattern. And it just, you don't realize you're getting better and better at it because it's so much fun. Mm-hmm. And what makes it, when you get a game over, you're just like, oh, I'll just do it again. Mm-hmm. You kind of get better at it and better at it. That's what I think is so enjoyable about these first, definitely this generation, and even the next generation a little bit, these console games, is that they had to be fun the whole time because you were going to have to do everything over and over again.
Yeah.
And, I'm skipping ahead a little bit, but when I go back and play Sonic 2, it's just precision. It's just muscle memory, reflex, cranking through levels until I get to that latter half of the game where, I didn't get this far until I was a little bit older. I don't know these levels as well. Mm-hmm. And I think that Mario really establishes that as just perfection.
Really makes you think about like how much of our brain space is just kept occupied. It's like, wow, he did this a lot when he was young. This must be really important.
Yeah.
This has got to be super important. This particular pattern of little minute finger movements that he had to do to face these very threatening challenges.
Yeah.
We better preserve this forever.
Especially, I'll have not just with these consoles, but do you have cheat codes that are just stuck in your head forever? Because I definitely do.
If I thought of a couple, I bet I could.
Like,
yeah.
I will never, ever forget the level select code for Sonic 2. You had to go into the sound check to, like, listen to all the different noises. And it was 1965 917. That was how you unlocked the level select. And there's just a lot of that type of knowledge. Just like,
now you celebrate September 17th every year now as
yes, I do.
Yeah, as the Sonic 2 cheat code day.
And, a lot of those old games had the Konami code. I never played much Contra, so...
Yeah. Me either. Contra is on my list, but I'm going to count this as having mentioned it because it's a very important game, but, it's a video game.
It's your essential...
Video game.
Arcade shooter, Mm-hmm. So, yeah, video game.
Yeah.
What else is there?
What else could there possibly be?
That's actually a great example of a game that was an arcade style game that made the perfect transition to a home console. That game,
Contra wasn't in the arcade, man.
But it feels like those types of like shooting.
Yeah,
arcade.
It's like a Metal Slug game.
Yeah,
yeah. I would be interested to see because I can't think of any arcade games that were quite like Contra at the time that Contra was in arcade. Contra was on the home console.
It's very possible that I'm just thinking of arcade games that came out after Contra came out that ripped off Contra.
I wonder.
That's very possible.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd have to look into the history a little bit. Dragon Warrior? Anybody?
So here's the thing with Dragon Warrior.
Dragon Warrior and Final Fantasy, your quintessential early RPGs.
I fucking loved the first Dragon Warrior game.
Mm-hmm.
There was a dark time in my life before this show where I did not try to eliminate categories. If I wanted to find out what the fuck Final Fantasy was about, I was going to play Final Fantasy 1. Right? Awful. I hate myself. But I never played any of the other Dragon Warrior games, but when I played Dragon Warrior, I thought it was very enjoyable. It was pretty basic for an RPG, but it was manageable. You could be pretty young and kind of get a hold of it a little because there wasn't a whole lot to it. I really loved it. I never played the first Final Fantasy, though.
Yeah. My closest relationship with the first Final Fantasy is having read 8-Bit Theater, the webcomic, back in the early 2000s. It was a webcomic that used the sprites from Final Fantasy 1. So I have like this deep gut reaction to seeing those sprites that has nothing to do with the video game Final Fantasy 1, so I doubt I'll ever be able to play Final Fantasy 1.
That's like falling in love with jazz songs because you heard them in a hip-hop sample.
Yeah.
So I think in general the king of puzzle games for the NES had to be Tetris.
Tetris Attack. Tetris Attack is on the Super Nintendo. You're right, though. Tetris.
And so we can talk about Tetris because I do fucking love Tetris.
Me too.
But now when I go back and play, I find myself playing Dr. Mario a lot more than Tetris. I fucking love Dr. Mario.
Dr. Mario is very good.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, it's a match 3 instead of a match line, right?
Yeah.
It invented the match 3 genre. And in my opinion, jury's out on whether or not the match 3 was an evolution or a devolution of the Tetris model. I don't know.
I haven't thought about that. I don't think I'm ready to tackle that.
I think there's something elemental about Tetris in a way that Dr. Mario lacks somewhat.
Yeah.
I think that Tetris is the kind of like primordial video game soup that was able to spawn clones, essentially, that are themselves great games, like your Dr. Mario's or your
Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machines.
Exactly. That wonderful game. It's able to spawn those imitators and have those imitators still be very good games, but they don't quite hold a candle, in my opinion, to the purity of just Tetris ass Tetris.
Tetris is very pure. I will say that. That is fun for fun's sake. Like, there's no, there's a reason that Dr. Mario has Mario in it, and there's a reason that Dr. Robotnik's Mean Bean Machine has Dr. Robotnik, or Sonic Spinball has Sonic in it. They're taking games that might not be fun enough on their own and adding an element to them to make them more exciting and sell better. You don't even need that with Tetris. You're just like, I'm just going to put blocks together and make them disappear. And it's pure fun. And it works.
Yeah, it's a wonderful video game. Ghosts and Goblins is another pretty good video game in the realm of those like action adventure games, the precursors to your Dark Soulses. But not a game that I have much to say about, other than I do feel it's important.
Yeah.
And I do think that you should at least put your hands on it if you want to understand what video games were like at the time. A video game that I do love with my whole heart is called Excite Bike.
Oh, baby, Excite Bike.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Excite Bike's probably one of my favorite NES games.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that video game is essential to play no matter who you are. Play it in the Animal Crossing version if you want.
I actually when you said the word Excite Bike, my brain exploded with some things that I hadn't been thinking about.
Tell me about them.
So when we decided to talk about NES games, I was thinking about, okay, I had an NES. What NES games did I play? And I would think about being a kid, and I remember physically putting in Punch-Out and pressing the cart down and playing it. But then, when you said Excite Bike, I remembered, oh yeah, there were a handful of games that I never played on Nintendo, but I did play when I had Animal Crossing, and Excite Bike is one of those games.
Same.
Talk about a fun game.
That game's great.
Animal Crossing had... Was that one of the ones that was like...
We gotta talk about Balloon Fight, too.
Fucking A, we do. That was when my brain exploded. I was like, Balloon Fight. Essential in 2017. You want to play a fucking video game? Play yourself some Balloon Fight.
You like video games? Have you played Balloon Fight?
Balloon Fight does what no other video game does. Yeah. So Animal Crossing had a series of emulators that you could unlock within it, and
they were objects that you would actually you could buy or find or get gifted to you this NES, and you would actually place it in your house and you would play it on the accompanying TV.
So you know what I wonder about that, and I've always wondered about that because it didn't make sense to me, but maybe there was some graphical limitation about it. I don't understand why each NES game had to be its own NES when you had stereos that you could put different songs into in that game and bring up a hub of all your different songs you had loaded to it and pick one. I don't know why they didn't do that with the NES. If you wanted like all 12 emulators, you had to have like a whole row of your house lined up with NES games.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that.
Well, I think it's that they wanted the footprint to be bigger. They wanted it to be more of a commitment to have this NES game in your house. Or maybe it was just something that they added at the end of development, that it was like, hey, let's slap some... Wouldn't it be crazy if we slapped some NES games in here, and you would actually have to find the NES, and then you could play it.
And some of them were like lost in code, too. Like you had to have like an action replay to get all of them.
Yeah, there were like 2 that they didn't fully implement.
Yeah. So I would get, Animal Crossing is a game you can play for weeks, days, however long you want to put into it. And that would be, I would find myself lost in a game in Animal Crossing. Like I'd play Excite Bike for an hour, and then I'd go to turn it off and be like, oh yeah, shit, I'm within Animal Crossing right now.
Yeah, that's a disturbing moment. It's the dream within a dream.
I
entered the Animal Crossing reverie, and within the Animal Crossing reverie, I started riding this exciting bike.
Yeah. Shit. This exciting bike.
Exciting Bike is my title for Excite Bike.
Similar moments to that. I talked about in our November catch-up episode playing a port, essentially, of the first Wolfenstein game in the new Wolfenstein game.
Yeah.
I like that. That's a thing that happens.
Yeah.
And similarly, in Donkey Kong 64, there's a level where you have to beat the arcade version of Donkey Kong.
You have to beat Do you have to beat the whole thing? I thought it was like you had to get to level 3.
I think you have to beat the first 4 levels.
Damn.
And then instead of starting over like the arcade did, you got the golden banana.
Man, that game's hard, too.
I fucking love that game.
Yeah.
That game doesn't get enough love.
Donkey Kong?
Yeah.
Yeah. We can give it love now.
We'll fucking talk about it.
There's an NES version of Donkey Kong, right?
Oh, that one gets enough love. That's a great game.
Oh, Donkey Kong 64.
Yeah, Donkey Kong 64 doesn't get enough
We'll have
love.
our half-hour-long Donkey Kong 64 chat.
I'm glad you said that because I had forgot about the Donkey Kong NES port. What a fucking fantastic game that was, too, by the way.
Very good, yeah.
Taking a 4-level arcade game that just looped itself over and over again until you died and implementing those first 4 levels into a completely fleshed out game of like 8 different worlds with 4 different Mario puzzles in each one.
The fuck? I don't know anything about that.
Oh shit, yeah.
Did they really do that?
Yeah, once you beat the first 4 levels, that's like the first world. And then you go to like a jungle world and you have to like climb vines.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Similar to Donkey Kong 3.
They really went the extra mile. I'm remembering this now.
Oh, it's fucking beautiful.
Yeah.
What a great game.
Huh.
Speaking of great games.
Yep.
Let's talk about The Legend of Zelda.
That was the last game on my list. Thank you, Curtis.
We also have to talk about Balloon Fight, but we will talk about...
Yeah.
We got to talk about Legend of Zelda.
Let's talk about Legend of Zelda and Balloon Fight same time.
Yes.
How do you think Legend of Zelda and Balloon Fight compare to each other?
Balloon Fight feels small when I think about The Legend of Zelda.
Compared to The Legend of Zelda.
Yeah. I also think swords are a better weapon than cleats. But
I think Balloon Fight is better than the original Legend of Zelda.
Wow.
Yeah, I think that I think the original Legend of Zelda. Here's my take on the original Legend of Zelda, is that it was a great idea, but they didn't really deliver on it until Ocarina of Time.
Okay, here's where we are just going to staunchly disagree.
Yeah.
I think the Legend of Zelda took the idea. I think what you're saying about the Legend of Zelda, I think about games like Ultima 4 and Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. They took an idea of making an open world adventure game that they couldn't really implement on old PCs or on an Atari, and then Nintendo finally made it work. I think when you look back, it doesn't offer much compared to what they would give you even a few years later with A Link to the Past. But I think there is just this real sense of adventure and openness in the first Legend of Zelda game that I can't imagine sometimes, like, I'll fantasize about stuff like that. Like, I bet people shit their fucking pants the first time they watched Night of the Living Dead in a movie theater. Like, I think about shit like that. Like, I wish I could go back to fucking 1969 and fucking catch the opening night of, that, or go back and watch the first screening of Psycho or some shit like that. And I like to think about what people must have thought playing The Legend of Zelda for the first time, because they had games like, Mario, where it's your platformer left and right, and then they were just dropped in this world where they could go up, down, left, right. There were 8 dungeons that they weren't linear. You could get halfway through a dungeon and be like, oh, I must not have something I need.
I don't have the key that I need.
I'll have to go back and get whatever, I'll have to go get the fucking raft or whatever. And I think that you can't play games like that anymore, because I can't anyway, because when I get to a point where first of all, games are so much more linear now. They tell you where you need to go and what you need to do. And even if it's not a linear path, you might be able to explore as much as you want, like Grand Theft Auto or Just Cause. But you always have that marker. You always know right where you need to go.
They're not proper adventures, those open world games.
And I think that there was some pure level of exploring that is just... I mean, I'm sure there are some great computer games or indie games that I don't know about that...
There are.
Yeah, that have that. But I just think what it must have felt like to be dropped in that and be like, well, yeah, fucking figure it out. People... Even if you had those types of games, which as you say, we definitely do, when you get stuck, or when I get stuck, the temptation of looking at a guide is just so strong now. You're like, man, fuck this. And you just look it up.
I don't have time for this.
You go look at a fucking Let's Play or an FAQ if you're an old piece of shit like me. Read your way through the game. And I just think that, back then you had to have a magazine subscription just to get a fucking map.
Just to get a clue.
And I don't know. I think that game is a real odyssey of just something that's never been done again. And they've done it better, but I think that game can never be, nothing bad should ever be said about Zelda.
Zelda's fine. It's all right. I can't play it now.
It's hard.
No, there's so many little ideas that were the best they could be expressed at the time.
Yeah.
But they have been expressed so much better since then. So it is essential to have some knowledge of The Legend of Zelda if you want to know where video games came from and have some idea of where they might be going.
You're right.
But it's not a game that I would play because I am compelled to play it. It's a game that I would play because I'm curious about where these like design ethoses start.
All right. I never thought about it like that. Throwback joke. No, you're right. I think a lot of my love of Zelda does come from a place of, look what they did at that time. And in 2017, there are definitely better Zelda games to play.
Yeah. But I mean that you could say that about a lot of these games.
Yeah.
Yeah, any of them. In fact, I'm looking at other than Tetris.
Tetris.
They never did better than Tetris. Tetris has been all downhill.
Tetris and Balloon Fight are actually two of my go-to bored and want to play video games for 5 minutes. FreeTetris.org is a pretty good little Tetris port you can play for 2 minutes and then shut it off. And if you have actually, when I got my 3DS, I was an ambassador for the 3DS, which they don't do anymore. But that was because the Nintendo 3DS had such a shitty launch.
Yeah.
They gave the first people who bought them like 10 or 20 downloaded games.
Yeah, they rewarded you.
And Balloon Fight was one of those games. I'm sure you can probably just download it now. But for a while, those were exclusive to ambassadors. So if I'm like, chilling at work at lunch and I got 5 minutes, Balloon Fight, first game that I open up.
Yeah.
Great game.
Yeah.
You just floating around, balloons, stomping on. You're wearing cleats, I assume.
Yeah.
And you stomp on other players' balloons.
Yep. The enemies' balloons. There's also the not infinite, but there's the balloon obstacle course that you can go through.
Yeah.
Where you're trying to fly, you're trying to float through these spikes that can pop your balloons.
Man.
They don't make them like that anymore.
They don't. Anything else?
No, that's the Nintendo Entertainment Center, everybody.
So, I mean, we kind of went into this saying it was going to be biased and saying we probably don't have as much knowledge to be completely objective.
I don't strive for objectivity.
Right.
I have discarded any desire to be objective about this. The NES is better.
This is Ben and Curt till it hurts. You're here for Ben and Curt's opinions.
Yeah, this isn't Ben and Curt list the actual factual objective reality of the universe. Though it could be.
We should call the show that.
That's so it rolls off the tongue. Yeah. I don't think I could reproduce that string of words if you paid me.
So I think we could probably hands down say the NES is probably better than the Master System.
As though anyone was wondering.
Yeah. Where are they going to fall on this?
It's been 30 years,
They're going to have to
guys.
flip a coin because it's just too hard to choose. Yeah. It's like picking your favorite kid.
Yeah.
You just can't do it.
You can't.
You love them each in different ways,
Yeah. Master System, why can't you be more like NES?
Master System's really good at football, but NES gets straight A's. Why can't I love you both?
Yeah, NES. I don't know. We need to stop this a bit. It's going to go bad places. I can't compare children to video game consoles and feel okay about it.
Only because kids aren't as cool as video game consoles.
Yeah, because kids are a drag and video game consoles are sweet.
All right, so let's move into the next generation.
Let's move into the Genesis.
Yes.
All right, I have 2 games. Can you guess what 2 games I think are remarkable from the Genesis?
On your list? Because same thing. This is the problem I always have with Ben. Not sure if I've ever said this on the show or just to Ben. With Ben, whenever he says his favorite thing or if he likes something or not, you're like, is Ben going to go with the crowd and say what the whole world thinks, or is he going to pull a Ben and just be like, actually, it's the opposite of what everybody says?
I think the whole formulation of that question is off. I don't think that there's no broad consensus about this. Both of these games have their crowd. They're both beloved by many.
You're going against the grain on the people's opinion about Ben.
There's no grain. The people's opinion. What are you talking? What is the people's opinion? The people's opinion is that Sonic the Hedgehog is great.
I'm talking about opinions of you, of Ben.
Oh.
People love you.
I know.
You got a good radio voice.
My adoring public. I've got a good radio voice, and I get people riled up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sonic?
Fuck no.
Oh, god damn it.
Sonic sucks.
What the fuck else is there?
Sonic sucks so bad.
Dude!
Sonic, they're bad games.
Shut it down.
They're just, I can't.
Shut down the whole podcast because
it's fine.
We can't talk about this.
This has been a long developing schism, and it's right for us to hash this out at some point.
How dare you break this shit to me? This is like breaking up with me on the air.
Sonic was a bad attempt to clone the success of Mario, and it never worked, and Sonic has never been as good as Mario, or even close to being as good as Mario.
I'm shaking right now. All right. Vector Man?
No, Vector Man is sweet, but I wouldn't.
Solid, right?
Yeah, Vector Man is cool.
Earthworm Jim?
Fuck Earthworm Jim. Don't get me started.
Why are you like this?
Earthworm Jim was made by Shiny, right? Did Shiny make those games?
I don't know.
There's like one guy who was the mind behind Earthworm Jim, and he's a weird guy. Look him up sometime. Yeah, you know that game came out of one person's weird brain.
Shit, I'm trying to think, and I'm just let me look.
One of them is a game that we've definitely talked about before, and we both enjoy this game, and I think we both think it's somewhat
Aladdin?
underrated. Nah,
no?
I don't like Aladdin that much. I like the Super Nintendo one better.
Damn it. Gunstar Heroes?
Gunstar Heroes.
Yeah,
yeah, Gunstar Heroes.
I knew
is
I'd
sweet.
guess it.
Yeah.
Even if I had to list every Genesis game.
We get to the bottom, and I'm like, no, actually, I was talking about. I can't name a Genesis game.
That's fine. So, Gunstar Heroes. I've never played it, but I've people rave about it.
Gunstar Heroes is crazy. Gunstar Heroes is one of the most chaotic games I've ever played. Treasure, that was what they specialized in. Treasure has always specialized in making crazy, chaotic nightmare games. And Gunstar Heroes is that to a T. Like, you're running through the desert and you're shooting everything on screen. And it's like, you can play co-op too, so maybe you're doing it with a friend. And the bosses are sick. There's like one boss where you're on a cart and it's rolling along the tracks and it goes all around you, so you have to shoot in all different directions. And
That's
it's like
sick. 3
different bosses, and you never know which one's going to show up next, and you have to handle them all in different ways. It's hard as nails. There's one bit that's it's like a slot machine game where the results of the slot machine spinning are I forget what happens as a result of them. You have to do something different depending on what comes up on the slot machine, and like that's not very fun, but it's weird, you know. That's cool. It was worth making. Yeah, Gunstar Heroes is my one, and then I'm gonna just say my other one, and it's Comic Zone.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I'm surprised by that because I think Comic Zone, in my opinion, was always a way cooler concept than game.
And it's mostly on here because of the concept, but no one else has made a game quite like that. And I'm not sure that you could make a game like that in the third dimension,
Right.
which likely means that it's never going to happen now.
Also, I don't think kids know what comic books are anymore.
Kids don't like comic books. They're too busy on Snapchat.
I only laugh because it's true.
It's really true.
God, you know, I'm never around kids ever in my life. Like, I have a couple little cousins, but they're like little aliens to me. I just look at them like mystified.
What do you guys do all day?
Yeah. Plus, I'm like this weird, like, man-child. So, like, my cousins have a real hard time, like, categorizing Curt. Because there's, you know, I'm really in between what their parents are like and what they're like. Because I, you know, play Pokemon with them and stuff. And they'll, like, ask me,
Are you a peer or an authority figure?
Well, they'll say, like, do you go to school or do you go to work? Like,
both, sort of.
Weirdly,
I
both.
work at a school.
But when I worked at the bar, one of them asked me that, and I was like, oh, I go to work. And they were like, what do you do at work? And I was like, you know how you go to a restaurant and you get food? And they were like, yeah. And I was like, I make the food. Like,
the food at every restaurant we go to?
Yeah, every restaurant.
Every single one of them. I'm there.
Young child.
Maybe you should say thank you instead of interrogating me. What do you think of the Genesis, Curtis?
I really like the Genesis. It was the first console I ever had. So it was a series of the first games I ever played.
What were the first games you ever played? Tell me about those Genesis games.
The first... Sonic 2 came with my Genesis. So that... I don't know if that was the first video game I ever played, but that was the first one I really played. Mm-hmm. And I have a special place in my heart for Sonic 1, Sonic 2, Sonic 3, Sonic and Knuckles, and Sonic 3 and Knuckles.
It must hurt you to hear me discard them so
It was
readily.
awful. It was not a pleasant...
Sorry about that.
Oh.
I don't take it back, though.
So what... So you think... All right, let me just... we gotta
dig into
I
this.
gotta know.
Now's the time. If not now, when?
Right. This is just gonna weigh on our friendship.
Mm-hmm.
So you think...
Let me get this straight.
Let me just process what you just said.
Tell me what you think my opinion is.
You think the Sonic games were nothing more than an attempt to rip off the Mario games, and it failed and has never been better than a Mario counterpart?
Absolutely. Wow. The closest they came was the original Sonic games. But since then, like the 3D Sonic games...
that's garbage.
They're terrible.
Hot trash.
I kind of prefer them to the 2D ones just because they have...
I will fucking jump out this window.
They have so many...
In the style of Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Those games... Yeah, and then you come back up and you'll do it again later. I love those movies.
When you talk shit about fucking Earthbound or something.
So when I'm not going to talk shit about Earthbound, man. Earthbound is
you
incredible.
act like, how could I possibly hate Earthbound when you just shit on Sonic the Hedgehog?
How could you compare the two? This is getting... Listen, I don't want this to end. I don't want the first episode of our holiday buyer's guide to end this podcast.
You think you fucking know somebody?
Earthbound and Sonic. How could you even? I'm baffled.
They're
You've
both
baffled
radical.
me. Earthbound is great. Earthbound is a touching journey to the heart of what it means to be a child. Sonic is bullshit marketing crap. Just crap from a butthole.
Crap from a butthole.
When I look at Earthbound, I feel joy in my heart. When I look at Sonic the Hedgehog, I feel disgusted and sad.
Oh. Sonic is great.
Tell me why. What's good about Sonic?
So, not to take anything away from Mario, but I think the idea of Sonic was... I mean, yeah, obviously I would have to say that it was born in like, holy shit, Nintendo's fucking shit up with Super Mario. Let's make a mascot and then do the same thing. You're think
right. It was copycat,
right? And I think that the idea was, well, let's make a cooler one. Like Mario's cute and fun. Let's make a fucking badass one. So they do, and I think it looks really cool. I think Sonic is a really cool, sleek character. And then I think it's not so much in Sonic 1. Sonic 1 is not a very fast game. But
it was fast for the time.
Certainly. And I think, but when you get into Sonic 2, I think so the two aspects that make the Sonic games great, and I think in some ways better than Mario, is that they are fast games. You do your spin dash and you can crank through areas. And I think that you're given more options in Sonic games. You can go quickly to get that time bonus, or you can go slow and explore. And also, Sonic games are built around the idea that there are different layers of the level, and if you suck at the game, you're going to be down towards the bottom of the level because you keep falling down, where you're encountering more enemies and less coins. Where if you are really good and you can time your jumps, you can soar over the top of the level by hitting different springs and, doing the big loop-de-loop things and just getting a series of one-ups and lots of coins. And rings, rather. Don't want to
fucking can't even. Yeah.
And I think that I like that. You're given a lot more choice. When you get better at a Mario game, there's just the one way to go, and you've figured out the fastest way to do it. But with Sonic, you can have very different experiences. Like even now, I've memorized my Sonic patterns, and sometimes I'll be like, you know what, I'm Metropolis Zone. I'm gonna go down bottom, and it's like, oh my god, I haven't taken this route since I was a kid, and I sucked at the game. Yeah. And I think it adds some depth to the game that sometimes Mario games don't have. Not that depth is what is so great about a Mario game. It's playability.
Super Mario World has hella depth. Super Mario World has more depth. Super Mario World has more depth than every Sonic game ever combined. Just in one Super Mario World game is not even the best Mario game.
Mario
Super
World.
Mario World has the different paths that you're talking about, except that instead of just being different paths to the same ending, they're actually different paths to different endings to the level that take you on different paths through the overworld, which is another thing that Sonic the Hedgehog lacks. They've never really done the overworld because they don't have the personality to populate it. I hate Sonic the Hedgehog.
And I honestly think like Super Sonic is one of the coolest video game things pretty much ever.
Like he's just a Super Saiyan.
Right.
Yeah,
and
it's Super Saiyan Sonic.
That's fucking sick.
You know what Mario does? He gets big. And then he rides a dinosaur. What are you talking about? Sonic the Hedgehog, come on.
I don't know, man.
I enjoyed a Sonic video game once or twice, but only on the Game Boy Advance.
Please don't tell me it was like 3D Blast or something.
No, that one's too recent. I stopped playing console games before that one came out. No, wait.
That was
on the Dreamcast.
Yeah.
No, was it? I thought Sonic 3D Blast was on the Saturn?
It may have been, but
Genesis?
It was definitely on. I think it was on the...
I don't know.
I think...
It's like really fundamental 3D, rudimentary rather is
Yeah.
the word I'm thinking of. Rudimentary 3D. I think Sonic 3D Blast was on the Genesis. I was thinking of another, whichever one came out on the DS like 6 or 7 years ago. That was the one I was thinking of. Anyway,
Yeah.
fuck Sonic.
I gotta look it up because I don't know. All right.
Do you have anything else about the Genesis? Because I'll just look up what Sonic 3D Blast is while you tell me more about the Genesis.
About that. I really liked. There was a tendency for movie-based video games to not suck back then, and you had a series of fucking banger Disney games. Aladdin was fucking insane. The Lion King's a great game. Castle of Illusion, the Mickey Mouse one, all great games, great platformers.
Oh yeah, those Mickey Mouse games were amazing.
And then Ninja Turtles had counterpart games. The Sega Genesis had the Hyperstone Heist, which probably isn't as good as Turtles in Time on the Super Nintendo, but still a fucking fantastic game. Mm-hmm. And then that was just a time when so much shit was coming out. I'm like looking at these popular games. X-Men was a great game. X-Men 2 was a great game on the Genesis. I think there were a lot of just cool action games with really cool visuals that I think for the most part, the visual graphics of the Genesis may have been superior to the Super Nintendo, but overall gameplay I would have to give to Super Nintendo.
Depends on how you use it, I guess. Like, I think that there are games on the Super Nintendo that look better than anything the Genesis had to offer.
Yeah.
I don't know how they stacked up against each other in raw computing power, but ultimately I think that's kind of irrelevant
Yeah,
today.
It doesn't matter. You're not looking at spreadsheets and comparing. You're playing games, so whichever game is the more fun.
Yeah.
That's what you're looking at.
Yeah. Are you ready to move on to the Super Nintendo?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right, let's get the Super Nintendo going. My first game that I want to bring from the Super Nintendo is a little game called ActRaiser.
Great game.
Yeah, ActRaiser.
Actually, I think I played it on Sega.
ActRaiser was on Sega as well?
I believe it was.
Was it the same game?
I don't know.
Yeah.
If we were good podcast hosts.
Hey, here, you look that up. I'll talk about ActRaiser, and
it.
I will preface it by saying Sonic 3D Blast came out on the Saturn and the Genesis, I believe.
Okay.
2 different versions. Or at least there are 2 different cases that I can look at on the Google image search results. ActRaiser is a super cool game. It's like Castlevania levels,
Yeah,
but
it was on both.
Between each Castlevania level, you also play like a city builder, like a SimCity style city builder.
I didn't play that until I played the Sega Genesis collection on Xbox 360, and I was like, man, what the fuck have I been missing out on?
Yeah, ActRaiser is an incredible game. It's one of my favorite action adventure games from the era. Give me a Super Nintendo game.
Sim City.
Hella tight. That game's really good.
That game is fucking perfection.
Yeah.
Really just gives you like, it doesn't really look very good. It kind of gives you the illusion that you're like, running a city. But it's just fucking perfect, just fun.
Yeah, for putting that game on the Super Nintendo, like that was a game on the personal computer, and they made a perfectly serviceable version of it on the Super Nintendo. Just while we're on the subject, sort of, Super Mario World.
Yeah.
Can't deny that game anything.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, Super Mario World is incredible. It takes everything that was good about the NES ones and just elevates it all. Yeah. You've got a fully featured overworld with different paths you can take through the overworld, a ton of secrets that you can find, which Back in the day, it seems like secrets were a much bigger thing, but I really think that secrets are making a comeback.
Yeah?
Like, Doom has a lot of secrets in it, the Doom that came out the last couple of years. Yeah, people are hiding secrets in their games again, and it's really good. Like, I remember reading about one of the things, I forget, whoever designed Doom, I don't think it was John Carmack, but the early id, had this idea that secrets are one of the things that make a video game good.
Yeah.
Your video game needs to have lots of fun secrets to go find, and I love something about that philosophy of game design.
Especially from that time period, because you found out about those secrets, like, 1 in 20 kids had Nintendo Power or whatever the Sega Genesis equivalent was.
There wasn't one.
How did kids find? But you found out by other kids.
Yeah.
Very few kids had access to the secrets. It spread through, talking on the playground about,
Yeah.
oh, did you know this would happen if you do this?
I bet the Sega ones just showed up in like Electronic Gaming Monthly or something.
Yeah, you're probably right.
Game Pro.
So for me, I think one of the strongest points of the Super Nintendo is definitely when you get into the JRPG realm.
Mm-hmm.
That game, I think that game that console is a contender for greatest console of all time, based on the strength of the countless fantastic RPGs on that game. Earthbound, Breath of Fire 2, Secret of Mana, Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy games, Terranigma, fucking... I guess that's probably all that I know off the top of my head. But I mean,
Secret of Mana.
Yeah,
that's a great game. Illusion of Gaia. I've
yeah,
heard good
there
things
you go.
about. But seriously, Chrono Trigger though.
Yeah.
Like Chrono Trigger. A lot of those games don't really hold much for me. Super Mario RPG as well.
Oh
course.
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. But of those games, the one that I think you can actually like go back and play. The two that I think you can actually go back and play that I would recommend that people should are Earthbound and Chrono Trigger.
I would personally have to add Breath of Fire 2 to that.
I never really played Breath of Fire.
I love Breath
What's
of Fire.
What's that game
2.
like? Tell me about that game.
It's your typical JRPG, but maybe this isn't so unique, but at the time it was unique because I never played a game where you could have 12 people to choose from to be in your party, and they'd all hang out at a shack, and you could have like 3 of them with you at a time.
Huh.
So you got the option of like kind of putting together your favorite party based on the different abilities of each one, and there were if you went to certain towns or cities, there were different things that each one could do there or whatever. And it's just your standard turn-based RPG, but it was just fantastic. A lot of great fighting and cool story and everything.
What was the story like? Do you remember what the story was about?
It's so fucking typical that it's not even you.
You have to kill God.
No, you wake up and your little sister is missing, and then nobody remembers who you are. So you're off on a journey to find out why nobody remembers you and what happened to your little sister. And the rest of it is just your typical fodder of JRPG tropes. So. But it's just great. Just a classic game.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think Earthbound is an enigma. There's something so special about Earthbound that I don't even know if people fully understand what is so great about it, because it's never been done again.
Well, I think we do know why it was so great. It's because it was written by a novelist.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, a Japanese novelist wrote it. I cannot remember his name right now to save my life.
It's probably very Japanese.
The name?
Yeah.
I'm sure it was. But yeah, he wrote Mother, Mother 2, and Mother 3, of which Mother 2 came over here as Earthbound. Neither of the other ones ever came out here. But yeah, he when your job is to write, you're a better writer than like some schlub who maybe your job is to make characters and you also wrote this Final Fantasy story, or like you're a game designer and also here's a story for a Final Fantasy or a Dragon Warrior or whatever. He wrote a really great story about childhood and about what it means to go on an adventure and how dangerous it is to go on an adventure, and how when you go on an adventure you're going to be changed, sometimes in disturbing ways. Yeah, Earthbound's great.
The biggest thing that I take from that is, well, like you mentioned, it's about going on an adventure with your friends, which I think is a very strong, it all comes back to Wizard of Oz, man. That's that thing. But what did it for me in that game was I've never fucking swung a broadsword around or shot a fucking crossbow or a bow and arrow.
But I have killed a crow with my bare
Yeah,
hands.
I was gonna say I have held a baseball bat.
Yeah.
I've swung a baseball bat.
Yeah.
I can imagine what it would feel like to get hit in the face with a fucking frying pan. All the weapons in that game are real world items that a kid could have access to. If you were going to go play in the woods with your friends and they were like, hey, we're going to play fucking whatever, bring a weapon, that's the shit you'd grab.
Yeah.
And even like yo-yos and stuff, they get pretty creative with it. And it's just a phenomenal game. Hard as shit, though. Like, it's really long and hard.
Yeah.
I played along with a guide when I played it, but it was still... You know it's great when you can play alongside a guide telling you what to do, and it's still phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. How about Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie, the game?
Fuck that game.
That's like the longest video game title.
I've never played that game nor heard of it. I don't know why I said fuck that game.
It
sounds like a movie tie-in. What's that game like?
It's your typical beat 'em up where you just get to pick your character and use, that character's abilities.
The one of those that I played...
It's Golden Axe.
The one of those that I played...
Shout out to Golden Axe. Don't know how we didn't mention that on the Genesis section.
I thought you did. I kind of hustled past it.
Yeah. We also haven't talked about Mortal Kombat.
We will.
Okay.
The one Super Nintendo beat 'em up that I played was Turtles in Time.
Fantastic game.
Not a game I would put on my list, but a game that I have some pretty strong feelings for.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it. I beat that game. I remember the day. I remember the day that I actually went through and finished that game.
Yeah, it was pretty special, huh?
It was a weird day.
Let's talk about Mortal Kombat real quick.
All right, I'll accept this.
Mortal Kombat is... Oh, we're going to get in a fight over this.
Mortal Kombat's all right. I have no strong feelings for or against Mortal Kombat.
Mortal Kombat...
I had a lot of fun playing it with my sister when I was young.
Is across pretty much every console, I think, is my go-to fighting game. I was never into Virtua Fighter, really, when that was a thing. Or... I don't know. What are some other ones? Street Fighter, Soul Calibur, Marvel vs. Capcom. Never really... Those are all fine and fun to play. If someone wants to play them,
Tekken.
Tekken's a good one. But for me, it was always fucking Mortal Kombat. You can't fuck with Mortal Kombat.
Primal Rage.
Yeah, I never played that one.
I'm just listing
Clay Fighter.
Clay Fighter. Clay Fighter 63 and 1/3.
Yeah. Oh, man. Classic. I should have stole that game from the video rental store when I had a chance.
You should have. Yes. Yeah, and destroyed it.
You know what was the worst? That just reminded me. When you rented a video game from a rental store and they just gave you like a shitty photocopied version of the instruction booklet.
Yeah, right.
All fucking... Couldn't even
all
tell
the
what the
moves
images
on there.
were because
Yeah.
they were all fucking poorly copied.
Yeah.
I think for me, Mortal Kombat's a quintessential fighting game.
What do you like about it? The violence?
I like the violence, but I never really... People talk about how people preferred the Sega Genesis version because it had blood, and I can honestly tell you, I never noticed that the Super Nintendo one didn't have blood.
It just has sweat instead.
Because it was so violent still that I was like, who cares? Like, I just ripped my own face off and set a person on fire by breathing fire onto them.
That's a good one.
That's fucking incredible. Or I just uppercutted a person off a bridge into a
spike pit.
Pit.
That's the other one I think of too.
But
wow, that's weird.
No blood though.
Let's keep going back and forth naming. What's the next fatality that you think of? Let's say it in unison.
I don't.
All right.
I don't
the next
know
one.
if I have one.
3.
I don't really have one.
1. Scorpion, get over here.
Oh, okay.
Is that a fatality?
No.
Can he fatality?
But
that
you're.
one?
That's not a fatality.
That's the next move that I thought of.
That's back B, baby.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah. Yep. After that, it's probably Sub-Zero's ice thing that he shoots.
Johnny Cage Shadow Kick.
That's a good one.
Classic.
Cool.
I was scared of Goro.
I was really scared of Goro, too.
He's pretty fucking scary.
Yeah, I only got to him a couple times.
Yeah, I could beat him with 2 characters if I spammed him. If I was Raiden and I did the flying punching palms, or if I was Sub-Zero, I could like high kick him into the corner and spam my way through beating him. And then Shang Tsung was super scary because he's just so unpredictable.
Yeah.
All right. For me, that was basically it. Was Mortal Kombat, Mario games, and a series of Disney games.
Those
were my Super Nintendo.
Well, okay. What was the really good Mickey Mouse? Was it Castle of Illusion?
Yes.
On Super Nintendo? I love that game.
That's a great game.
Yeah, that's.
I never played that one as much as Aladdin or Lion King because I didn't own it.
I very much prefer it to those.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I'll have to play it. I'll have to see how much it costs. I can't cost much. Those games are plentiful.
I don't know. I think that game might have actually been kind of rare. Mickey Mouse Castle of Illusion.
Yeah.
Just emulate it. It's
Yeah.
fine. That's going to be okay.
That's illegal, and I wouldn't do that.
Oh, of course. I forgot. That was illegal.
Yes.
What else do I like? I really like F-Zero.
I can't do that game.
F-Zero looks really cool.
It does look cool.
I like the graphics on it. I liked them when I was a kid and I didn't know how they made them. I like it even more now that I do know how they made them. It's just really sweet. You go really fast. Like, talk about speed. I think F-Zero was made in response to Sega being like, the Super Nintendo's a slow console for slow boys. The Sega Genesis is for fast kids.
You're not a slow boy, are you?
You're not a slow boy, right?
No,
yes, I am a slow boy. I like my
fair.
sedate, slow Mario. And then when I get the feeling that I'd like to go kind of fast, I'll put F-Zero in and I'll blast around.
Then when I get overwhelmed by the speed, I'll go back to Mario Kart.
Yep, Mario Kart back on.
I can't do the Super Nintendo Mario Kart.
No, I can't do any Mario Kart.
You don't like Mario Kart?
Mario Kart's alright. I don't know.
I love Mario Kart.
I like Mario Kart Double Dash, but that's probably just because I have really formative memories of Mario Kart Double Dash.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of time at the teen center when I was a youth, and we played a lot of Double Dash there. So I just have good associations with it. I think Mario Kart gets away with, well, and, you know, if a lot of people enjoy it, who am I to say that it's not a good game?
Yeah.
At some level. But I think Mario Kart gets away with a lot by being a very good social game.
Yeah. But you know what's weird, though, is I actually don't really like playing it with other people. I pretty much just play it by myself.
Yeah.
So
I'm not going to say I never played a Mario Kart into the ground. As I think I've mentioned, I spent a long time getting what I believe to have been record times on the Super Mario Kart Advance.
Yeah.
Mario Kart.
How about Donkey Kong Country?
On the Super Nintendo?
Yeah.
Not a fan.
Not a fan?
It's a copy of Mario. Copy paste.
You know, it is, but I think that Rare really took it to the next level. I think the graphics are fucking beautiful.
The graphics are
that game. The
graphics are neat. I will give them that. They are an
they
interesting
sure are
trick.
Something.
They are interesting to look at. I don't think they look half as good as the sprite work on Mario.
And I think the music in the Donkey Kong Country games are pretty phenomenal as well.
The music is really good. The music's probably my favorite part. Yeah. Still not as good as the music in Mario, though.
I don't know. The sound kit is a lot better. So they may not be, songs may not be as well written, but I find them very enjoyable to listen to just because, they sound nice.
They use a lot more creative instruments.
Yeah, that's probably about it for me.
Well, let me see.
Those
what
are
else?
my essential
what else do I
Super
have?
Nintendo games.
Yoshi's Island is great.
Fuck yeah, it is.
Yeah. Yoshi's Island is super tight. It's a weird sequel to Super Mario World.
Yeah, we're going to do an episode about that.
About what?
Mario World 1 and 2 together.
Yep. Yeah, I think we should. But yeah, Yoshi's Island was like the last big hurrah for a long time for the 2D Nintendo platformers.
Yeah.
Because I don't think there was really, unless you count fucking Yoshi's Story on the N64 or something, and why would you? That game's garbage. For interesting reasons, though. Oh, you really like Yoshi's Story?
I mean, formative years spent playing Yoshi's Story.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, Yoshi's Story's all right. The story of Yoshi's Story is really interesting, and you should look
We're gonna
that
do
up
an
sometime.
episode
about Yoshi's Story.
I'll just read about it.
I think I might be sick that week.
Did you ever get into Super Metroid?
Yeah, I was about to say Super Metroid.
Good.
Super Metroid is a wonderful game.
I never got into Metroid games.
No, none of them.
None of them. I got all the way to Ridley on Metroid Prime, and then I was like, I did not like that game. It was not an enjoyable adventure for me.
Oh, Metroid Prime's great. Metroid Prime is... that's like that's a precursor to a lot of really important first-person games that are being made right now.
We're going to be talking about, when we get to our episode with the GameCube, we're going to talk about how that console was holding it down.
Yeah.
Never got the recognition that it deserved.
No, yeah, the GameCube is a wonderful console. And it's Nintendo's last proper console.
Yeah.
Until whatever, the whatever their current one is called. I forget what it's
the
the Switch.
And I still don't think we're back at a proper console yet.
No.
I think we're focusing. We'll talk about it.
What?
We'll have an episode
I can't get
about
into
the
this.
Switch.
I don't really have the right to have opinions about this because I'm not going to buy any of them because I'm too poor for video games. But yeah, I don't know.
We kind of talked.
I have a lot of ill-informed opinions about Nintendo consoles. And the only other Super Nintendo game I want to talk about is Chrono Trigger. I want to give that another shout out.
I'm similar. I never really played Chrono Trigger. I think we kind of talked about Super Mario RPG, but I can't praise that game enough.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Great. What's the word? It's like, baby's first RPG.
Yeah.
That game.
It was my first RPG.
Yeah. Super Mario RPG and Pokemon were the first simplified RPG element games that I played that really kind of showed me what a video game could be. Especially those were the first two games. I think Pokemon was the first game that I remember having to like, oh, you mean I can save and then shut it off and then pick it up later? That was completely new to me. My whole life was, let's run through Emerald Hill Zone again to get to the next level of Sonic. Hopefully we can get back to the point we were last night before bedtime. And then that's pretty much it for me. I'm same as before. I'm scrolling through. I will say probably the best thing about the Super Nintendo was they took things you already liked on the Nintendo and just gave you a sequel that was like better.
Yeah, that was kind of what I was thinking about. I had to kind of consider the idea that maybe the Super Nintendo was more iterative than I would like to think. But on the other hand, there were a lot of really new things being done on the Super Nintendo, like that Super Mario World Overworld thing. That wasn't popular on the NES.
No.
But that little extra bit of graphics power made it possible to do so much more.
Yeah, there was a very, I liked how interactive it was. It felt cool. It's a very nice overworld too. It looks good. It's a world you want to explore.
It pulls you in.
Mario 3 doesn't do that as much. You're kind of just using it as a way to show that you are making progress, and it's showing you how much more progress you have to make. But
for Super Nintendo, we would be loath to forget Super Mario All Stars.
Oh man, and then especially All Stars Plus World.
Plus World, how crazy is that?
I can't think of that honestly is like probably the best gaming discount bundle maybe ever.
Definitely up there. It's definitely one of the best.
I mean, Sega Genesis had their, not to take anything away from it, I think the 6-pack was a great marketing thing. It was, I don't remember exactly what games were on. I know like fucking Columns was on it, which is a decent puzzle game, and Golden Axe and Sonic, and it was a great 6-pack of like the most popular Sega games, but that ain't got shit on Mario.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3 Lost Levels and World.
Right. That just blows you away.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Zombies Ate My Neighbors.
Nah.
Fine.
No thanks. Put it away.
Do you want to take your moment to talk about Tetris Attack, or did we?
Tetris Attack is sweet. I love Tetris Attack. Tetris Attack feels different enough from Tetris that it feels like it warrants being a new type of puzzle game. As the blocks aren't really coming from above. The column is growing from below, and you're swapping the blocks that are already on the column. Tetris Attack is really cool. I never got maybe as good at Tetris Attack as I should have, but I did enjoy it. And God knows I'll forget about this by the time we get to the GameCube, but Pokemon Puzzle League.
I never played
like
that one.
Like an updated version of Tetris Attack with all these crazy different modes where you've got, I
gotta check it out because for a long time I was pretty obsessed with I played Pokemon Pinball, I played Pokemon Trading Card Game, I played Stadium, all of those, secondary Pokemon games. Like, Snap. Fucking Pokemon Snap's a great game.
We'll talk about Pokemon
We're gonna do a Pokemon Snap episode.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it next episode.
Oh yeah, I'm sure we will.
Yeah.
Is that, speaking of which, do we want to
wrap it up?
Yeah. So let's. I think it's about time. We're pretty much
Super Nintendo. The Super Nintendo is a better video game console than the Sega Genesis.
Okay, so obviously, as of right now, we would say that the Nintendo and the Super Nintendo are the winners of tonight's rounds. We're going to do this with each generation of console.
Every single one of them.
And then we're going to have to, we'll get into it a little bit at the end and do a little quick pros and cons of each one to decide our favorite.
Yep.
The Ben and Curt Till It Hurts.
Official
greatest console of all time.
Best console of all time. The B-coat, as I call it.
The B-coat. I think I know which way you're going to lean on that.
On what my best console of all time is going to be? Because I don't know, actually.
I'm gonna keep it to myself.
Yeah, you don't want to influence it.
I don't want to influence your opinion either way. So
wait, I already told you where I was going with it.
Did we?
I think, now that I'm thinking back, I think I do have an idea of what I'm going to say.
Okay. So
are we going to spoil it?
I don't remember. So
all right.
We'll
save the surprise.
So that about wraps that up. I guess we'll be getting into some other stuff next week.
What are we going to talk about next week?
Next week we'll be talking about the
Sega Saturn.
Oh yeah, shit! I forgot about that.
The N64.
The
PlayStation.
Yes.
The Sega Dreamcast.
Yes.
The PlayStation 2. The Xbox. The GameCube.
We fucked up.
Yeah, that's 7 consoles. 7 of them.
To be fair, I think a couple of those are going to get swept under the rug pretty quickly.
Yeah, how many Saturn games do you know the names of? Panzer Dragoon.
Another thing we actually didn't even get
Sonic
to talk
3D
about.
Blast.
That it doesn't matter because Super Nintendo won, in our opinion. But the fact that Super Nintendo stayed Super Nintendo and towards the end of its career, you had Super Mario RPG, Terranigma. You had some great games.
Yoshi's Island was a very late one as well.
You're right. That really pushed the boundaries of what you could do with this console for some fantastic games that didn't even get played for a long time by many people because they already had the next console. Sega, on the other hand, kept making these weird fucking life support systems like the 32X and the fucking CD that just made your Sega look like this fucking unholy abomination of shit slapped on top of each other. That really, before we even talked about game quality, that was something I knew was going to hold it back, was that the end of the Super Nintendo was a lot more graceful than the fucking drawn out end of the Sega Genesis.
Yeah.
So that'll wrap it up for this week. We'll be back next week to talk about those fucking 7 consoles.
Yep.
As always, you can listen to more Ben and Curt Till It Hurts and Black Gold Podcast by subscribing to Black Gold Podcast on iTunes and Stitcher. You can also stream it from Buzzsprout or YouTube. If you're a listener of the show, please give us a rating or drop us a review on iTunes. It helps the show a lot, and we really appreciate it. I actually haven't checked if we've gotten any more since I begged for them last week or whatever. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at CurtCake5K. Oh, also, Snups. That's a new thing.
What the fuck?
That's a new social media thing that I'm trying out.
What is it?
I'm still playing around with it, trying to fine-tune what it is really about, but it's basically Instagram just for people that collect things.
Oh.
So you can go, if you're super into toys or video games or music or vinyl or whatever, books, and pretty much anything. I am
into books.
It looks like there aren't a lot of people into it yet, but I mean, if I know about it, there's a lot of people on it, so I'm not a fucking trendsetter.
There's a community.
So I'm checking that out. I'm playing around with it, seeing how it works and stuff, but you can follow me on there at CurtCake5K, like all my other shit. And I think that is it. We will be back next time to do that stuff, so good night, everybody.
Bye.